If you're working late at Google, it's because you want to work late, because you're
Right.
choosing to work late, or
Yeah.
you're going above and beyond to do something that you deeply care about, because everything is in service to the user, not necessarily the client.
Right? Getting into Google is hard, getting into McKinsey is hard. Yeah, and what was your thought process at that point in time when you were interviewing that actually led you to crack these roles?
And I, for the longest time, believed that character building moments are in like parts of your life that test you a lot, like that are tough, where you're resilient and you persevere and like you persistently like find a way to get out of it. Like that's what I believe to be true. I think it was meeting my partner. Everything was so easy in that relationship, and it made me think about how you can also discover like the squishy parts of yourself or build up yourself when you're in your most comfortable.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am back yet again with my next guest. She is Sham for Shambhavi. She is phenomenal. She started off her journey with McKinsey, went on to doing her graduate studies at Wharton, and then spent a couple of wonderful years being a product manager at Google. Then, just like that, one day she decided she did not want to be boxed up in an MNC anymore, and she wanted to experience what it is like to grow a startup. So she quit her job at Google, and today she is working as a product manager at Brightband. Now, in this conversation, we talk about all the learnings that she had from being a consultant at McKinsey, from being a product manager at Google, and what she brings to Brightband today. But the most beautiful takeaway that I personally had was just how systematically she approaches her next decisions in life. It's simply beautiful. So listen to this entire podcast. Learn about product management, learn about how to make the next step decisions in your life. And if you get inspired, then definitely put down a comment right below telling us which part did you enjoy the most. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for continuing to give so much love to the Out of Office show. I am deeply indebted to you. And because of this, I have decided, and this is the first time I'm telling you guys, but I have decided that I am going to bring to you 100 amazing episodes from amazing people in the space, in the world, doing amazing things that can help you professionally grow. So if you know somebody who should absolutely be on this podcast, then drop a link to their LinkedIn below or message me. See you soon. Enjoy the show. Hello, Sham. Welcome to the Out of Office show. How are
Thank
you?
you. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I'm very flattered.
I'm glad. This is truly out of office for you because you are in San Francisco and you've just finished your day's work. And I'm hoping you finish and you don't have something more to do after this, but you're truly out of office.
I am. Well, when you're in a startup, are you ever out of office? No, but I am. Yeah.
See, that's why I created this show so I could get out of office. you know. All right. So today, Sham, I do have a lot of things to unwrap and unravel. Starting from your journey with two big logos, there is Google, McKinsey. What all did you learn? And then now that you're working in a startup, how things are different. And also, you were in Singapore here before, and now you're in San Francisco, which is also a third lens to your life, which I would love to, dive into. Are you ready?
Yeah, sounds great. Let's get into it.
Okay, so before we go deeper, give me a quick understanding of your timeline and for our audience.
Yeah. So grew up in Chennai, which is a city in like the southeastern coast of India. As a kid, I was into like theater, like the debating society, like model UN. When I was thinking back to, oh, what were like the exciting things when I was a kid, I was like, man, a lot of these things like play little parts into like who I am today. And then I moved to Singapore for undergrad, spent almost like 8.5 years in Singapore. I went to NUS, National University of Singapore, to get a major in computer science and electrical engineering. At the time, there was this like unique combination of like you get to do like computer sciencey stuff, but at the same time you can be an engineer, build things like solder stuff, work with all electronics. So that was very fascinating, and that kind of got me there. And during the undergraduate course, we had this like little workshop that we attended called like Design-Centric like thinking, and that
Sorry,
say that again. Say that
I
again.
was a part of it. I didn't know. Okay, design.
Yes. Yeah. So I this was like the kind of like inaugural cohort of the design centric curriculum, and they were sort of doing a workshop, and something clicked. The mindset of like keep the user first and like talk to them, understand their needs, build something to fulfill a need, not build something then figure out if there is a need. And that I think was where like, you know, the plot twist or the turning point of like the timeline of how things sort of laid out. And during undergrad, started this startup with a bunch of friends, which was like an offshoot from the design-centric curriculum program. We called it EzMon. We were building wearable, non-invasive health monitoring device. This was 6 years before Apple Watch was a thing. So it's like way ahead of its time. When we were working on this startup idea, and it was time for graduation, I told myself, I love what I do. I love the technical aspects, but I also love the business aspects. And I said, I will only interview at McKinsey because somebody told me, hey, have you heard of McKinsey? McKinsey does this thing and it sounded fun. So I said, if that doesn't work out, I will find a way to make the startup work. And McKinsey worked out. So that's where I spent about, I want to say like four years in consulting across Southeast Asia, Australia, and Africa.
Right.
And there was a point of time where I felt like I wanted to go back to school. And that's when I left Singapore to go do an MBA at Wharton in the US. And during the MBA, I did an internship at Google. And loved being a PM. It felt like all of my favorite parts of what I like doing, what I'm good at, kind of like
Came together
into a place. Yeah. And then I spent about 4.5 to 5 years at Google. And very recently, like 6 months ago, I moved to the startup, which is Brightband. They're in the AI weather forecasting space.
Beautiful. So, wow. Chennai, Singapore, NUS, EzMon, and then McKinsey, then graduate studies, and then after that, Google, and today in startup. Wow, what a journey. And you know, when you said EzMon, I was like, oh my God, she's the one who did EzMon. You know, because EzMon was everywhere. The moment you enter design-centric program, it was like they were marketing EzMon with posters and everything. And I was like, wow, somebody created an Apple Watch. I had no clue who it was. Now I know. It's like clicking. Fancy. Love it. Okay, so let's go deeper. Right. Let's talk about McKinsey, because I think that's where you started your career and as a fresh grad. So, yeah, what was your role in McKinsey? How did that sort of evolve over a period of time?
Yeah. So when I started at McKinsey, I joined as a consultant. They have multiple tracks. Believe it or not, takes a village. There are lots of different functions, even though it's a management consulting company. And I started as a business analyst, which is kind of like the title that you get when you join McKinsey right out of undergrad. And over the 4 years that I was there, I moved through the roles, and when I was leaving, I was an engagement manager. In all of these different roles, the big responsibility you have is to enable clients to solve business problems that they face. Most of these are like Fortune 500 companies. I think specifically the practice that I was in was the technology practice. So what we would think about is, yes, this is a business problem.
Yeah.
But what technology solutions can enable you to sort of like get the next 10x or 100x growth to solve
Right.
this problem? And that was kind of the role. And while as a business analyst, like you're running analyses, you're helping the team find a answer, like we always call it the answer, whatever is the problem statement for a period of time. We call it studies, which is just a project. And when I moved into being an engagement manager, you are the only person or you're the senior most person on the team interacting with the client on a day-to-day basis, and the working level team reports into you.
Right.
And that's kind of the setup. So you're managing a cross-functional team.
Yeah.
Because we're in the technology side of things, you have very technical folks. You
Yeah.
also have generalists who are consultants.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of bringing all of these people together to deliver whatever it is that
Right.
McKinsey has promised to.
Okay. Okay. So if I'm understanding this right, you started off as a business analyst, but you were a part of the working team, and then you left as someone who was able to manage an entire cross-functional team and response to a problem statement that was given by the customer, and looking at this entire thing from a technical point of view. Fantastic. What did you enjoy the most here?
Man, this is a very hard question because I feel like you have to remember that I was a 21, maybe 22-year-old, 21-year-old when I started in McKinsey. This was my first ever experience in the corporate world. And I think I got a window into so many different companies.
Yeah.
This was very much my objective when I joined McKinsey, saying, okay, I want to understand how big companies are run. I've tried working in a startup environment, but I want to really understand like what does good look like, or what does great look like, or what should you not do. But I got more than what I asked for, like in a very good way. Of you get such a diversity because you're working across so many different cultural settings.
Right.
So I worked across almost all of the Southeast Asian countries, worked in Australia, and also was very fortunate to get some time in Africa. So you get this like whole range of business contexts, different stages of companies, and even within companies, maybe there's a team that's like a tiger team working on a startup initiative that we work with, and you sort of get that experience of like what is it like to be in a startup but in a big company. And all through this, one thing that I've loved that McKinsey does is they invest so much in their people. Like everything is in service of you being successful to deliver what we need to clients. Whether it is like trainings, like as soon as you join the company, you spent the first 2, if not 3 weeks just sitting in trainings. Like that's a huge investment that
Yeah.
you're being paid, but you just
You're
get to
being
sit
taught.
and learn. Yeah. I think like a big like value of mine is like I want to be curious. Like I want to be constantly learning. And this felt like it was trying to quench my thirst for like learning. And I loved how they do that. But not just that, right? And we have a very, very strong like feedback culture. Sometimes even unsolicited.
Yeah.
But it is so, I think even to this day, I don't think I've found that culture anywhere else.
Right.
There are things that I didn't know about myself that I learned through the feedback. Because someone said, hey, I've noticed this specific thing about you when you interact with people. Have you thought about it? Those are things that I keep with me to this day on like who I am as a leader, or who I am as a teammate, or who I am as a person in the world outside. So I think the investment in people, like I'm very passionate about like how they did it, and that's something like I take with me every day.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I love it. Yeah, so I have heard a little bit more about how McKinsey does trainings that well. And I think one of the things that you rightly mentioned, and I didn't actually know this was, I don't know if it is actually the way they do it in McKinsey, but one of the best ways to, of course, give feedback, as you just mentioned here, is to just look at it from the point of your observation, and then let the person who you are giving the feedback to agree or disagree and go into their own mode of self-introspection. Is that also how they do it in McKinsey?
Yeah, yeah. It's very much ICX.
Right.
I think why, or this
Yeah.
is how I experience it.
Right.
Why do you do it? Or why? Because it could be constructive feedback as well, right?
Yeah.
Why do you do what you do? Honestly, I think I handle a lot of relationships outside of work also this way. Like there's like
Right.
the feedback comes from a place of like curiosity,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's always great because then you are thinking about how to get better together.
Yeah.
Like your classic like feedback that doesn't land well is the shit sandwich, right? Like it's the
Shit sandwich. Interesting.
there's the you say something positive,
Yeah.
then and then yes, and then you say, okay, here are all these things that I don't want. Or is it compliment sandwich? I think it's compliment sandwich. Okay, let me go again. So the classic thing is compliment sandwich. You say something nice, and
Yeah.
then while you're saying something nice, the person who's receiving the feedback is
Yeah.
always thinking, what is waiting for me? So
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily paying attention to the compliments you're giving me. I'm waiting for the ball to drop. And when it does, I'm very focused on, okay, what are all these things that I need to work on?
Yeah.
And here you need to remember McKinsey hires insecure overachievers, like type A people. So they're only focusing on the things they're not good at. And then if you then end it with, yeah, that was bad, but you're still good at these things, that doesn't land because I'm still thinking about the stuff that you told me. And
Yes.
like the whole point is like strengths-based development. Like you
Yeah.
cannot ask a frog to fly or a fish like so you want to be able to see what the person's good at and put
Yeah.
them in those situations. And I think McKinsey does a very good job of that.
Nice, nice. No, the biggest part of this framework, as I see, is that you are taking out the judgment, the element of judgment, and when you're just saying that this is an observation and that's totally mine, and I may be wrong, right? Then I think it diffuses the ball dropping feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. No, I had another question here about McKinsey. So you've worked with so many different organizations. What industry did you enjoy working the most with, or you thought that this had a future? And which industry did you think was like, no shit, this is going down the drain?
Man, I worked with banks, with
Yeah.
telcos, insurance companies. Also did a lot of work in the energy sector, like oil and gas companies, folks like the chemical space. And with all of them, it's very different problems that we're solving. Also education, healthcare. So a whole range, right? And the problems you're solving means you're touching different parts of the value chain. Like
Yeah.
for instance, worked on cybersecurity for an energy company. Not necessarily within the core energy value chain,
Right.
but it's business critical for you to be resilient
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
deliver on
Yeah.
whatever mandates that you've set aside for yourself. So I would say my favorite parts of it were the projects where I went in knowing very little and I had to learn a lot within the first like few weeks. So we have a week zero concept where you're trying to ask dumb questions so you can be smart in week one and learn everything about the space, know who's who within the company. So you
Right.
know who to talk to when you have questions. And I would say that the role that I'm in right now, a lot, like a third of the GDP is impacted by weather. So a lot of people should be or are already making decisions based on weather. And a lot of potential customers we talk to are all in the industries that I served in when I was in McKinsey. So in a way, it's like a full circle moment of coming
Yeah.
back to all of these companies that I've worked with or industries that I've worked in, and I understand how things run around there and kind of like see how things tick, like what keeps it ticking. And that's been very fun.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful. Now, I think this is very interesting, but do you have a favorite industry? Like you enjoyed working. I mean, I understand that what you might be working on is a very parallel thing to the industry itself, but I'm sure you work with the context of the industry. No?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen it that way. If your question is where did I see the most amount of growth or like what I
Yeah.
saw,
Yeah.
is that
That
what
could
it
be.
but So the reason I say like I don't think I think of it as favorite because it's more what I love is the parts that are favorite are like the teams that I worked with. It's
Correct.
always the people, the problems that I worked on, as opposed to
Yeah.
like the industry being a favorite. Where I saw a lot of growth or like where I saw a lot of potential, definitely energy, which is also why I am where I am. I feel like, I don't know, we all have to do our part to
Yeah.
preserve the nature for future generations. And I feel like there's a lot of potential for energy to play a big part there.
Beautiful. I love that. Yeah, because a lot of the energy companies here as well, they have very big transition plans into green energy, and they're always on this energy transition mode, which is of course 10, 15 years planned out, that they have a step-by-step way of transitioning. They're not going to do it in one day. But yeah, lovely. Okay, so much fun at McKinsey. Why did you quit?
You know, incidentally, I had to make that decision at two different points of time. So I always, and I think this has been a theme, I start a job with an exit criteria in mind.
Wait, say that again. I don't know why I love it. It's good. Okay, so you start a job with an exit criteria in mind. Great, go on.
And it's more about like what are my learning goals? What needs to be true for me to have achieved it? And if I have, then it's time for me to think about what next based on what the next set of goals are. And with McKinsey, a lot of my learning goals were trying to understand the fundamentals of how to solve a hard problem or any problem. How do you structure problems? How do you communicate solutions? How do you think about executing them? And there was a point of time where I felt like I had gotten the hang of it. And a second part of it was I felt like I was going through Google University. What I mean by that is I was a computer engineer, but while I'm using technology stuff that I had learned in undergrad, there's a lot of business stuff that I would just Google and learn, and I just wanted to be in a classroom setting and learn game theory.
Yeah.
Think about how do I perceive the impacts of macroeconomics, microeconomics, like how do I think about negotiation, influence? Like I just wanted to be in a classroom. I wanted to learn. And so I took a 3-month sabbatical from McKinsey. So they have this program. Oh, another great reason how like they invest in their people. So they have had this program. I don't know if it still exists because this was a while ago. They had this program called Take Time. You can go off on like 80%, 90% time, meaning you can take 1 day a week off or 2 days a week off, or you could accumulate all of this and take an extended period of time off.
Right.
So I went on a 3-month sabbatical because I was feeling this like sort of need to want to shift gears, but I wanted to pause because I owe that to myself to take time to reflect. So when I took the sabbatical, one of the hypotheses that I had at the time was when you're a consultant, you're probably taking the problem through to 80% of the finish line. It's very hard to keep consultants around for the entire time because it's expensive, it's not logistically ideal. You have employees who are going to take it through to the finish line. And I always felt like the need to be accountable and take it through to the remaining 20%, which probably takes 80% of the effort.
Right.
And didn't want to necessarily leave slide decks behind. So to prove this, okay, if this is what my hypothesis is, this is what I feel like I'm missing at McKinsey, then what can I do to experiment to like tell myself if this is true or not? So during the sabbatical, I worked at a nonprofit. This was based in Kenya, and they were doing vocational courses for folks who were like in the like early 20s or late, like early to mid 20s sort of kids who are trying to transition out of like school into a job. So we wanted to give them training for specific courses. The one that I worked on was like sewing machine operators who would learn a bunch of skills and then they would go work in denim factories, like making like jean jackets, like pants, like that's kind of the transition. This program was called Generation, and they had a lot of other like vocational trainings, like how can you be an insurance agent, how can you sell. So there were these training programs which you recruit for, then you put them through it, you tell employers, hey, we're going to get you very good talent that's highly trained, who have gone through this program, and then we'll give you access to this pool to hire them. And because we're making this easy for them, they would help fund a part of the training program. So this was a setup that was running, and I went there. I think I was there for about 2 months when I ran this program to see, does it bring a lot of joy? And it totally did. So this is exactly what I wanted to be doing. So this was like a reassurance of, okay, I think this is what I want. Then I kind of came back and told myself I need to change, but I don't necessarily know what that role looks like. Like, where is a role where I'll get to do this stuff? And there's still always that need to like want to learn and go back to school. So I decided to take a leave of absence to go to school. So the way McKinsey works, if you come back to McKinsey after grad school, they will pay for the tuition fee.
Oh, okay, right.
So,
Provided you come back.
Yeah. You take a leave of absence, you take an education leave. So this was like my part one of the decision of, I'm leaving McKinsey, but I don't know if I'm leaving McKinsey.
Right.
And I kind of like punted that decision in a way, right? Because I'm trying to get more facts. So when I went through business school, my goal was, during my internship, I want to understand what role is going to fulfill this like gap in terms of like the skills that I want to build are going to be solved by. And product management was something that was thrown around. At that time, I hadn't necessarily worked with PMs, and I hadn't like been in organizations where there were PMs. So this was something new, and I wanted to understand if it will be a fit. So for me, the foray into Google and the internship was again a way to validate the hypothesis of, okay, is this going to be fun? Do I want to do this? And when I finished the internship and I was thinking about, okay, what am I doing once I graduate, was when I actually decided to leave McKinsey, where now I know, okay, I have crossed this like river, and I know that the McKinsey learning journey has ended, and then it's going to be product management. Whether it's Google or not is a different question, but product felt like the right fit, like the piece that I was missing.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. What did you do, or what was the internship experience in Google like that validated your hypothesis around product management?
Yeah. This was something somebody told me even when I was interviewing for McKinsey is interviews are as much the company analyzing if you are going to be a good fit as it is you trying to assess if the company is going to be a good fit for you. Yeah. So even from the interview process, this was me trying to understand, do I like the people? Do I like what I'm being asked to do? Because the interview is a very good reflection of what you will be doing in your day-to-day job. So I'm constantly trying to see, what do I like? What do I dislike? What feels like grunt work? Because things you do that because you have to versus things that get you in like your zone of genius. Like, this is what I thrive on, and I love to do it. So I was constantly having that lens on, even from the interview process. And when I was at the internship, one of my requests to my manager was, hey, can I get a flavor of the product lifecycle from product definition all the way through execution? I want to be able to get a little bit of an experience to see what the role looks like for a PM anywhere and what a role looks like for a PM at Google. It's like very common knowledge that the role of a PM is very different based on the like stage of the product, based on the company. And for me, the question was then, is product the next step? And then is Google product manager the next step? Yeah. So it was, and my internship experience was, write a product requirements document for a specific feature. So you get the experience of definition. And then there was product insight strategy, analyzing an existing product that's in production, used by millions, if not billions of users, to sort of find the root cause of a specific adoption issue that we're seeing. So do I like that part? And then the execution, there was a feature that they were about to launch, but they felt the quality bar was not being met.
Mm.
And I was sent there saying, okay, go fix it. If you can, launch it before you leave in 3 months.
Wow.
And so I got a flavor of all of those things during the internship. And it very much felt like a good balance of things that I'm good at. So when I go in there, I can actually deliver, but also things that I get to learn. So I will still be happy and feel sated in terms of like things I learned through the process. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I love how, I could figure out like the part where you are looking at figuring out why a certain product, or it could be a competitive product, or it could be an inspirational product, as I call, is doing well or not doing well in the market and figuring out what's going wrong with it. I think that's a very consultant mindset. Right? You've got a problem, you've got a hypothesis, and then you're looking at data that can prove or disprove something.
Yep, 100%. I tell all my ex-consultants who want to be PMs that you're already a PM. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. It is a lot of very similar skill sets.
Right. Beautiful. Okay. So this is how you basically eventually moved into Google as a PM. What were some of the key differences between your job in McKinsey and Google? I mean, I know we spoke about we spoke about the similarities in the PM role between the two just now. So what was the difference? It could be in terms of culture, it could be role, it could be or anything. Open question.
One thing that comes to mind is autonomy over my schedule. That was something I distinctly remember feeling in the first few months at Google. If you're working late at Google, it's because you want to work late, because you're
Right.
choosing to work late, or
Yeah.
you're going above and beyond to do something that you deeply care about, because everything is in service to the user, not necessarily the client. And when it is a client, then you're doing things that are not necessarily choices you're making because, hey, there's relationship management. There are issues that are out of your control. Maybe there's an unexpected board meeting that comes up that now the team spins up to like prepare for it. So there's much less autonomy over what your schedule looks like on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And the flexibility is not necessarily something that you can create. I joke about this, but I went on a date with my now partner at 4 p.m. on a weekday. This was the only time that worked, and we were gonna do it. But I woke up early, wrapped up the things I had to do for that day, and then I just went on about my business because that's the kind of flexibility that you get. Very often, you will see folks on their calendar block time saying, "Oh, I'm dropping off my kids," or "I'm picking up my kids," and it is very sacred. Like it's ungoogly to schedule over those times. And you take one for the team if somebody has drop-off duty, then you attend the meeting on their behalf. Like there is so much like respect for your fellow coworkers, like schedule and time, that I love that a lot. Like that was a big difference between McKinsey and Google. Maybe like one other thing that I would say is I learned how to always assume good intention when I was at Google.
Tell me more.
If there's so when you're a consultant, you're trying to think of worst case scenarios and plan for it. So you're always thinking about why something went wrong, and you're not always thinking of like the good intention. Like you're just thinking of what are all the different reasons why something went wrong. At Google, there's a big emphasis on like always assume good intention. Something as small as I wasn't invited to this meeting that I think I should be in. Assume good intention. Think that maybe the person forgot to add you. Go ask them, hey, I thought this meeting would be super helpful for me. Why didn't you add me? And that carries through with a lot of different things, even when you take it all the way through like delivering the product. If a product doesn't work, or if there are issues with it, assume good intention on everybody's part. Like everybody's here to do their very best.
Yeah.
And deliver for the user and solve a problem. So let's think about basically a blameless postmortem of like what went wrong. And I'm a huge fan. I love that very much. And I think I try to practice it as much as possible.
This is so beautiful. Actually, it kind of reminds me, or what was going on in my mind, right? Google, you're creating products, and I feel like in a startup as well, and many places where you are a product manager, you're creating a product, and creation of a product requires a lot of positive energy as a person. And so I feel it makes sense when you are consciously working on yourself to assume the best or give the benefit of doubt or whatever the other way people frame it as. On the other hand, you have, and I've been in both these roles. On the other hand, you have a consultant, or you have, let's say, an engineer who is round the clock doing DevOps, for example, right? They are figuring out what is not working and what can go wrong and try to preempt that. Even a designer, an ops person, running maybe ships, they are figuring out when this can break. And
No, it's true because when do you call consultants, right? Like you're calling consultants as the final line of defense. Like you've tried everything, something's broken, something's on fire. Please come fix it. So you're not there to assume good intention.
yes, okay, now it makes sense why insecure overachievers are on the other side. You need them. I mean, you can't have a positive Baba sitting there going like, it's all going to be fine. Sorry. But yeah, no, I'm understanding the kind of personalities you need for both these roles, and both are important. Otherwise, we wouldn't have good products or we wouldn't find out why they're not working. Great. So let's talk about mindset since we've been forayed into this conversation. So, cracking both these roles are difficult, or they have been deemed difficult by people, right? Getting into Google is hard, getting into McKinsey is hard. So what was your mindset and what was your thought process at that point in time when you were interviewing that actually led you to crack these roles?
I keep thinking back to see if this was cognitive dissonance or not. And I really don't think I was chasing the brands. It was never about, I want to get something on my resume to build credibility. And it has always been very like skills and goals based. Like, what do I want to achieve? Where is this going to take me? It may be career goals, it may be life goals. Like one of the big reasons why I picked a grad school in the US is because my nephews were very young then, and I wanted to spend more time with them, and they were based out of San Francisco. So I found a school that would have a campus in San Francisco, and Wharton has a campus here and in Philadelphia. So I spent 2 semesters here. So there's always the aspect of, yes, there are goals, whether they're career goals or life goals. It depends. And for me, McKinsey, as I said, like only job that I applied to, and because I had this startup that I was working on, and it felt like these are the skills that I wanted to work on, and McKinsey was a fit at that point of time for those specific skills. And then when I moved from McKinsey to Google, there were things that I felt I was missing in a consultant job that I wanted to tack on, but not necessarily do away with everything that a consultant already does. So then it was, okay, these are the things that I wanted molded into this like new role that I'm looking for. And that was very similar to how I switched from Google to Brightband. We can talk more about it, but
Yes.
very similar thinking to like, what do I like that I want to keep? What are things that are new that I want to add? And what are things that I don't like that I want to avoid in an environment that I'm working in? We all spend so much of our days at work. So I wanted to spend time like crafting it. When I think back to like what worked, I am somebody who does a lot of like preparation is my superpower. Like I have to prepare, and I think there's a lot of like, I shouldn't like take it lightly that there are a lot of preparation went into like both of these interviews, right? Like there's a way you case, like there's a way you go through the process. And I practiced a bunch with like folks who are ex-consultants or like MBA students, because I was just in undergrad at that point. On like, how do you case? Like, what are questions they ask you? And how do you go through this like process so that you're giving answers that are expected or like that demonstrate that you can think a certain way. And then with Google, it was more about making sure that everything that I have done before and I know comes through in the interviews, because it's not typical belief that a consultant has been a PM. Like this is my strong belief is that when you're a consultant, you're kind of doing a product manager job, but that's not necessarily obvious to a lot of people. So my goal with the interview process was very much like bringing that across the table. I will say, so there's like multiple rounds, and like in one of the interviews, I finished the interview and I really thought I bombed the interview. Like I thought, oh man, I did not do a good job. And to get the call back was a surprise. So it's not always like very obvious like that things will work out. And I think, and you don't always know what the other side of the table is like looking for. And with Google, even though you go through the interview process, become an intern, at the end of the internship, you go through another interview to convert to full time. So the process goes on and you kind of like go through the steps, and they're very similar, right? Like there's casing, being able to answer strategic questions, thinking about product design. How would you go about building a feature? Prioritization is like a big skill that I picked up being a product manager. So when you propose features, like how do you think about prioritization? What is your rubric? How do you go about it? And all of these are very similar between like the two interviews. But yeah, I think very structured preparation is like a big part of it.
Nice. And at any point in time, did you feel like you were not good enough in any of these interviews while you were preparing?
All the time. While preparation is a superpower, imposter syndrome is also another superpower I have. Over the years, I've maybe learned how to make imposter syndrome into a positive like impact in my life, but 100%, like all the time. Like I'm always questioning myself, like what more can I do? So McKinsey, this is so fun. So McKinsey has this very cool thing where they set up a call with a consultant who will do a mock interview with you.
Okay.
This is like they don't need to do this. Like this is all in service of making you successful.
Right.
And I still so vividly remember, because this is me who's just like who's an engineer, right? Like I'm a computer scientist plus like just engineer, like very nerdy person. And in the interview, this mock interview, because I'm so nervous, I confuse and mix up. When I need to say profit, I say revenue, and when I need to say revenue, I say profit. And I don't even realize I do this. And then at the end of the interview, the consultant basically very, very kindly says, hey, you should think about like preparing in these ways. One of the things that I noticed, do you understand the difference between revenue and profit? And I was like, I thought I did. Like, so, and immediately the imposter syndrome kicks in. So I ask myself, do I really know what it is? Maybe I don't. And he says, well, this is what it is. And in when you were talking, you were mixing them up. And I'm like, I guess I did. I don't remember. So it happens all the time, right? So I'm always questioning, like, am I good enough? Have I done enough? Yeah, it doesn't escape the best of us. So yeah, 100%.
But you have a process, right, to get over it, or you just force through? What is your process?
There is a process, but I think it changes based on situations. Like for me, a lot of times when I feel uncomfortable, I'm asking myself what is causing the discomfort? Like what's my data point for like what's causing this discomfort? And are these data points just in my head, or like are they validated? Like is it a thought, or is this like an actual, like thoughts can be reality, but they don't always have to be reality. So is this something that I need to do something about, or is it something I just need to process? And sometimes just like very simple tools, like here are all the cases I did, here are the most common mistakes I made, like how can I try not to do the same mistakes again? And very similarly, like for product interviews, like take a bunch of products that I really love. How would I make them better? What am I saying? What's boring? What's interesting? How can I be more creative? How can I be more fun? So it was very structured in the sense that I'm going through things that I'm worried about and asking myself, what can I do to not feel that anymore? And at one point, there is the delta of like unexpected, uncontrollable things, and you just let that be, and it works.
I think this is a very interesting process, because what you're doing is you are self-validating based on your experiences, and as a result increasing your confidence, or as a result increasing or reducing your imposter syndrome in any way. And I think this works because I think, now that you were saying, I've done it I think once or maybe later as well, but I don't remember. I remember specifically distinctly I did it once, and this was an interview with SGX, and they had all these requirements of software tools that I had no clue about. And I mean, these were all proprietary languages as well. And I was like, how do I tell them that I can actually, first of all, can I actually do it? And then I sat down and then I wrote this, like, what do I know today that sounds similar to this? And I found a link. I was like, okay, SQL is like this. Okay, I know how to do select statements. We're good to go with this. And then I wrote it down properly, like, if they ask me this, if they ask me that, how do I answer these questions? And yeah, I think that built that confidence in me. And then when I went to the interview, it was the best interview I've given. There were so many other internships that had way better, more aligned requirements that I didn't get through. So I get what you mean, and I love it because yeah. In coming back to thoughts creating reality, as you said, maybe now thoughts are just a tool to influence your energy. It's actually energy that creates reality. I don't know what you say about this.
I don't know. Isn't all of humankind like running because we believe in the power of trying? We want to try to influence something, which is basically trying, in my mind, is energy. If you're just going by physics, like you're putting in energy into something because you're trying and because you believe you can influence the outcome of something.
Right.
And as somebody who like is a strong believer of like you put in what you get out of something.
Yeah.
Like I think that is true. Like you want to be able to influence stuff. And a big part of like all of this is like how you frame things, right? Like framing is a big part of how you experience reality.
Right.
And if you frame problems in a certain way, then you're able to influence how they turn out. It can be a very shitty situation, but if you're able to frame it as a learning opportunity, then you just have fun doing it because you're getting something out of it. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. We'll go more deeper into this. Let's talk about Brightband a bit, and let's talk about Google. And then wait, before we go to Brightband, I'm curious, what was one of the interesting things that you worked on in Google that totally blew your mind?
And that is a very high bar. Here's why. I'll tell you why it blew my mind. So my most recent team that I worked in before I left Google was a team that was working on building finding as a capability on Android. This was at a time when iOS users had AirTags.
Yeah.
They could find their physical objects that were not connected to the internet through the power of AirTags.
Yeah.
They had ways to find their MacBooks, their iPhones. Basically, you're creating this ability to find anything or never lose anything. And Android didn't have this feature. And I joined the team with the hope that, hey, this is a very small, scrappy team that has a very clear mandate to deliver this product. And you will be a startup inside Google, which means unlimited resources to just deliver on this product because we believe this is a big gap that we want to fill. When I went in, one of the things that I clearly knew was this has already been done before.
Yeah.
So, like, that's not the hard part of the problem. We're just going to focus on execution. Boy, was I so wrong. So I think like innovation can be solving a problem that's never solved before, but also solving a problem that's been solved before, but in a completely different environment.
Context.
Yeah. Think about the Android ecosystem. It's not just iPhones. Like you have tens of hundreds of thousands of different OEMs building different devices with different like Bluetooth components and chips that they choose from. And a lot of different options to build different like Bluetooth trackers to put on your devices, form factors. Like the ecosystem, when it's open, completely changes the equation of what you're solving for.
Yeah.
And I think what blew my mind was the complexity behind it. I don't think I have fully appreciated how hard it is to build products in Android because of how open the ecosystem is.
Right.
And that creates a lot of variability. And when you want to build high quality products, then
Yeah.
it's hard. Like you're testing against a lot of different things. That coupled with how location is handled, think about that. Like so many different devices running the same operating system,
Yeah.
but you want to handle location in a way that's reliable because, well, you're trying to find things. So it's all about location.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's different devices that ping at different rates, that refresh at different rates. So
Yeah.
how do you make sure you create service level agreements of like, we will refresh and provide you a location every X minutes. So the complexity that comes there is phenomenal. And then layered on top of all of this is safety. So there was a period of time where a lot of trackers were used for stalking. And if you really think about it, fundamentally, finding is just the other side of stalking. That's just malicious. And I spent so much time with like domestic abuse survivors and their experience, like what stalking looks like. And when you're a PM building a product for something to work, you also want to figure out how not to misuse it. And that was such a phenomenal learning experience. I spent about 3 years or 3.5 years on that team.
Right.
And it was great. By the time I left, it was like a 25, 30-person team, and there
Yeah.
were like multiple PMs on it when it started off as like one PM and a bunch of engineers. Yeah, pretty phenomenal. Favorite team, favorite product, favorite experience.
Nice. Let's digress a little bit. What
Yeah.
did you find out about stalking? How's it different from finding?
How is it different? I think
From your understanding, what are the more common ways people stalk, or what have you found out about the whole stalking behavior?
I think what I would say is patterns of how a user uses the product when they're actually trying to find something is slightly different from when you're trying to obsessively locate someone.
Okay.
That makes
What
sense.
is this difference in pattern?
No, like how frequently you refresh, or
Right.
like you're not trying, like when you're trying to find something, you're trying to ring the device
Yeah.
to locate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're just refreshing the location without ringing, or for example,
Yeah.
you're trying to be covert and just monitor something. So there are different signals you
Right.
can look for in how a user behaves.
Right.
And also the way items move is different from the way people move. Items
Right.
don't move very much. Like if you lost, let's say, your backpack on a bus,
Yeah.
it's slightly different from when you're trying to find an X and where all they're going. Like very different movement patterns as well. Well, we don't necessarily know the location because all the location is end-to-end encrypted. So when I say we, I mean like Google doesn't know the location. But what I mean to say is location patterns are different.
Yeah.
Like the way you consume the information is different. Like this
Right.
is like the ultimate like PM tries to understand the user
Yeah.
kind of experience, which is like the bread and butter of being a good product manager. So yeah.
This is very interesting, and I think this clicked in my head just now that, yeah, I mean, just frequency patterns and distance patterns, distance travel within that frequency, all of this would actually change from the vehicle that you're in. Are you walking? Are you in a car? And yeah, and of course your hardware will also impact it in different ways depending on your phone. Now you're working with Brightband that looks at weather data and is trying to use different innovative techniques to be able to predict weather better than how it has been traditionally done. Right? Tell me about the switch. Tell me about what's fun working today.
Man, I will say that on an average day, there's nothing I dislike about my day.
I love
I
it.
absolutely love my job. And I think the shift was very much this belief I had that, I don't know, in big companies, you put people into cubes because cubes are easier to move around and manipulate and manage.
Okay.
But I wanted to be a blob, which basically meant I didn't necessarily want to do just the things that were within the scope of being a product manager in this company.
Okay.
I am the only other non-technical person besides the CEO
Yeah.
at Brightband. So
Yeah.
we get to do everything that's not coding. And maybe we might even get into some front-end coding because nobody in the company does front-end coding. But I love all of those aspects. In terms of like what Brightband's doing or what is this like in pursuit of, there are so many more like extreme weather events that are happening. And the idea behind this is historically governments and maybe very big weather companies are the ones who've been able to predict the weather because they can invest in buying supercomputers and running like basically calculus or like partial differential equations to solve a state of the atmosphere
Right.
and predict the next state and the next state and then thereafter. But bringing GPUs and like AI into this means we can do this faster, cheaper, and more accurate. And if this were to be true, then think about like instead of like a 30-minute warning for a hurricane that's going to hit, maybe we can now give you 5-hour warning where you can move people, board up buildings, like save property, save the amount of losses that like we experience because of these extreme events. So there's that part of it. We're in pursuit of. Saying that, there are a lot of players who are building these models. I think what we specifically want to focus on is building tools so that anybody can generate a weather forecast for their weather as opposed to like the average weather. You can pick what specific observations from your environment you want to input. Pick what specific model you want to run to be able to generate, let's say, forecast for the next 5 hours, or do you want a forecast for the next 15 days? And do you want this forecast to just be weather outputs? Or do you want to know what's the traffic pattern going to be like 10 days from now because I'm organizing a marathon. Like it could be in that whole spectrum of things. And we want to be able to like build those tools to enable those business decisions.
Beautiful. I can already think of one key example, which is actually a lot of businesses, they are dependent, they're providing services to certain ships, and their service time could extend anything between, I think, 5 days to 10 days or 20 days, sometimes because of weather patterns. And if they're able to predict that, I think, along with other factors, they can definitely manage and reduce their costs, I believe. That could be.
Yeah, shipping, supply chain, logistics, huge like dependency on the weather.
Right. Nice. So how is product management in Brightband? Now you're working on a completely different product. How is it different working from as a product manager in Google versus in Brightband?
I think a big difference that I had to grapple with recently was like the B2C to B2B shift. I have done B2B when I was in McKinsey, right? Because like those are our clients, like we're selling to businesses. But for me, like the definition of a user, which is like literally my day job of like knowing the user, like shifted. Trying to understand who's the key decision maker, like who uses our product is not necessarily the one who buys our product. How do you think about the needs of both of those different groups, and how do we build a minimum viable product? Like for a startup, you're always earning the right to solve a bigger problem. So you want to solve the smallest problem possible in the fastest amount of time. So I think I spend a lot of time thinking about what's the bare minimum we can build to prove value of this thing that we think we can do.
Right.
And that's a very big part of like what does like life at Brightband look like, or what does product at Brightband look like. There are also like the classic product management toolkit skills that all remain. Like how do you think about a strategy? How do you think about a roadmap? How do you write out requirements for a product? Like how do you manage a schedule? Like how do you like do the project management aspects of being a product manager? All of those are like core to any team. The way you do it will probably morph based on who you're working with and what their styles are. Like as a PM, I'm an enabler. Like everybody on the team can do their job better than I can do anyone else's job. They're all experts, so I'm just there to like ask questions and enable them.
Right.
I think that's so. The goal here is to make sure I can hedge against the risks of building a new product, which is like inherently very risky, and just let them do what they're great at.
And in Brightband, do you work with engineers or because it's a heavily technical product as well? So is your team comprised in a way where you do have data scientists and engineers that you're working with?
Yeah, so the team has two technical sub teams.
Okay.
So there's the team that handles weather data.
Yeah.
They are making sure that we can get a real-time pipeline of the world's observations in a format that can be ingested into ML models.
Yeah.
Then there's the machine learning, like research engineering team
Right.
that takes all of this data to generate forecasts. In between these teams, there sits like the ML ops person who makes sure that the data flows through in a reliable manner into these pipelines and like the models can run on an operational basis. Because the way forecasts are generated today, you get a forecast every 6 hours.
Correct.
And each forecast goes out to a certain period of time, depending on what type of model you're running. We are currently looking at medium-term weather, which is the next 15 days. And you want to be able to make sure that your pipelines are like very reliable, so you're able to generate the forecasts on time. And we're dealing with like tons of data.
Yeah, I can
like
imagine.
hundreds of gigabytes or terabytes
Wow.
of data where like you're trying to gather like observations from across the globe and ingest it. So there's work to be done on the observation side. So there are these two technical teams, and so the CEO and I are there to like provide requirements, like talk to customers, understand requirements from them, and provide these in a manner that the team knows what they're building for. What is the model being fine-tuned or optimized for? Because what do these specific target customers care about? There's also the aspect of we could sell to anybody. Who should we sell to?
Yeah.
How do we prioritize which segment we go after?
Right.
And when? And for that specific segment, what features do they most care about? We're not going to be able to build a product that hits all of the requirements. Then in that case, how do I prioritize? Like, what are the 4 things that they need that we absolutely need to deliver? So all of that like falls into the product world. But going back to like I want it to be a blob and not a cube. I get to do sales, like because like that in this company it's product led sales. So think about sales and like how do you reach out to customers? How do you think about building a pipeline? Like how do you build a funnel that's ready to pilot a product?
Yeah.
How do you think about what's the time we need to convert these pilot customers to like fully paying customers where they're not on a trial period anymore, but they'll actually purchase the product?
Right.
And I get to do all of that. Think about marketing. So it's just all of it, right? Because we want to publish a blog post, we're writing it because it's just me and the CEO working on these things. So it's a lot of fun because product management takes a very different spin here.
Beautiful. I mean, I think this is one of the benefits, also sometimes the hard part of being in a startup where you are doing so many different things. And no, but it does make you a more holistic person. It does give you the breadth that is needed. I think, I don't know, do you think breadth is more important than being vertically?
Oh, man, this is my existential crisis question. I think I'm maybe in pursuit of a T shape, like so that which is like the asymptote I'm always going to strive to achieve. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but I do believe like the T shape is where like you can be dangerous or very, very helpful. So the CEO that I work with is very interesting. That this is his 6th startup.
Wow.
And I think he has sold, or like they've been 4 or 5 of his startups have been acquired.
Right.
And they're all in very different industries. So it was very much a vote of confidence for myself on I don't have the tail of my T built yet. I have product management skills, but I'm not a weather person. And like talking to him gave me the confidence that you can like slowly build your root system, build out that T. And maybe it's not a long T yet. There's like a short tail for the T right now, but it's in pursuit of like building that so I can be more useful for the team. Yeah.
Amazing. Great. So I would like to, move our conversation because we've heard so much about the work that you've done, so much about what Google, McKinsey is doing and Brightband is doing. But you particularly, right? As you have gone through this journey, how have you evolved? What are some key beliefs that has changed or become firmer in your journey?
I think the one that comes immediately to mind is I now know I love type 2 fun. Wait, do you know what the different types of fun are?
No, please enlighten.
So type 1 fun is instant gratification. Like I get an ice cream, I have an ice cream. This makes me happy.
Right.
I want to watch a TV show, I watch the TV show, I'm happy. Me liking type 2 fun is not to say that I don't find joy in type 1 fun, but I think I'm always in search of type 2 fun, or that's what gives me deep happiness. So type 2 fun is when you're doing it, you're asking yourself, why did I decide to think that this was fun for me or good for me?
Yeah.
And then when you finish it, you think, this is the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
When can I do it again?
Yeah.
And there are so many, inflection points in my life where I feel like it was very much type 2 fun. Like the classic example folks give for type 2 fun is like long distance running. Like when you're running the marathon or half marathon or whatever that is, you're asking yourself, what was I thinking when I signed up for it? And you routinely hear people sign up for the next one right after they finish it. And like that's like the feeling of like type 2 fun. Type 3 fun is not fun.
What is type 3?
When you're so type 3 fun, when you're doing it, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm about to die. Like this is too much for me. Like I cannot handle it. I don't know why I did it. And then when you're done with it, you still don't think that was very fun.
Then it's
Like
not
this
fun.
is like, hey, as a consultant, you need to always have three things. But this is not my fun framework. This is like a well-known fun framework. But sometimes you think something is going to
Yeah.
be fun.
Yeah.
And then when you start doing it, you think, oh, I pushed it over the edge. Like this can be extreme sports for like some people, right? Like it is type 2 fun for some people, but for some others, when you're doing it, you're like, wait, why did I ski down this like black diamond like trail? I should have never gone down it. This is not fun for me. So it's like a process of like self-discovery. But like my immediate answer to your question, I do think I love type 2 fun. Like I'm in pursuit of type 2 fun. There are many things that I've done in my life that has reinforced that love for type 2 fun. And then I think I mentioned this earlier in our conversation. Curiosity and like wanting to learn constantly has steered my life in a lot of different ways. Like when I stop learning, I get bored.
Yeah.
And before I used to dislike the fact that I get bored too easily. Like I was critical of myself, but now I know that this is my mind guiding me towards things that I want to do. Like, so I take it more as a signal of, okay, these are things that I want to do. Let me see. What else?
You know, a person who has this trait of being easily bored might think that they are more the type 1 fun kind of a person. I'm just trying to, because I am like that. Like I do get bored very easily, and then I'm on to the next thing. I'm like, okay, what can I build next? What can I do next? But then I don't know if I'm more type 1 or type 2 yet.
Hey, maybe we'll talk in 5 more years, and you might have gotten closer. And it's also when you realize what the different fun types are, then you start noticing, okay, what do I find fun? And maybe like the last thing that I'll say is, I don't know if this is part of like the upbringing with Asian parents, but or like McKinsey being a very hard experience. Like I talk about all my highs, but McKinsey can be very hard. The long hours, like you have to learn a lot. It's grueling, like you always have to be performing. So it's tough. And I, for the longest time, believed that character building moments are in like parts of your life that test you a lot, like that are tough, where like you like you're resilient and you persevere and like you persistently like find a way to get out of it. Like that's what I believe to be true. And I think that contributed a lot to like building the inner strength. But honestly, like I think I keep thinking back to like when did it change? And I think it was meeting my partner. Everything was so easy in that relationship. And it made me think about how you can also discover like the squishy parts of yourself or build up yourself when you're in your most comfortable.
Yeah.
Like when in the lighter moments, like easy moments where
Yeah.
you see yourself being in a flow state. Like that's what I mentioned before as like zone of genius. Like you love something, you can also get really good at something because you love something, because
Absolutely.
you're in pursuit of excellence. Like you want to get better at it. So I think like this is something that has changed from like what I believed before to be true. And I'm a fan. Like makes life easier.
I love this. I love this, you know, because we've been, so me and so there is a law of attraction life coach that I talk to very often. He's come on the podcast and I love it because he's a very empirical guy and he keeps experimenting. But this is exactly what he says. He's like, yeah, you want to learn something, super, you know, personal growth, very important. Spirituality and all of this is about personal growth. But why do you want to do it the hard way? It's in your head the hard way. You know, you can learn this in your most comfortable scenario and situation. So that was actually his inspiration to become a life coach, because he was like, I want to learn all of this. I want to figure this out, but not through me, through people. I'm just going to observe it. You know, so that's how he created comfort. But yeah, I absolutely agree that you can learn a lot of things just being in your comfort zone. But people might just think that, oh, comfort zone means being lazy and doing that's not true. It's just that you're learning with so much flow, as you mentioned, with so much passion that it doesn't feel heavy, but you're still having the growth that you need.
Yeah.
Nice. Did Vipassana help you figure this out in many ways, or no?
Man, I was recently talking to a friend who was thinking about trying Vipassana. And what was very interesting for me was realizing that the 2 times I did it, like I never had a goal that I wanted achieved out of it. Like I never took a problem with me for the 10 days of like silent meditation, like not talking to anybody, no writing materials, like not even eye contact. And you're meditating for like 16 hours a day.
Nice.
Somewhere around there. I think what I took away was very different the 2 times I did it. Did it once in 2017 and then a second time in 2022. And the 2017 was it was in a very like fast-paced, like reactionary environment with consulting, and just like always had to be go, go, go. This was when I was like traveling maybe, I don't know, 250 days a year or more. So always on the go. And the first time around, I learned how to be mindful, or what being mindful looked like for me.
Right.
And maybe it's the second one, not how to be mindful, but what does mindfulness look like for me? So I know what to look for when I'm like straying away from that like feeling. The second time around, this was a period where I was injured and I couldn't run. Like since NUS times has been like a big part of how I process. Like that's my meditation. Like that's my time to like just be. And I wasn't able to run, and it was becoming very hard, because sometimes, you know, like these kind of things are part of our identity, but also like how we stay healthy and like how we move on with our life, and like it contributes to our life in so many different ways. And that was very hard. And when I came out of Vipassana, I realized, hey, I'm going to form a new habit. It sounds so obvious, but I wasn't thinking about it. Well, pre-Vipassana, it was like I was grieving and mourning the fact that I couldn't run. But the 10 days helped me just process that grief and ask myself, okay, what do I want to do? So literally, like after I came out of Vipassana, like for 30 days, I would bike every single day, at least 10 miles. 10 miles is what, 16 kilometers. Like I would bike every single day, bare minimum 10 miles. If I could do more, great. I have more time, I will do it. Gave me back my time in nature, gave me back my time to do nothing. And that today helps me I don't know, it's a reminder of like you're backed into a corner, look at the problem a different way. What other angles are there? Because it's so obvious. Like, why did I not try biking? I had a
Yeah.
bike. Like, why was I not doing it? It's sometimes like it's like so obvious that it's right in front of you and like you're not really thinking about it. So I feel like both of those times, very different learnings, but it was equally hard. I think it's still like the maybe the second hardest thing I've done in my life. Type 2 fun, but second hardest thing I've done.
Wow. Do you still practice meditation?
I think I say I practice mindfulness.
Yeah.
I think meditation's such a loaded word, and it also means so many things for so many different people. I definitely practice mindfulness. I have like things that I do intentionally, but not regularly,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Yeah. But when I know I'm struggling with something, then I go to all of those like tools I have in my tool chest of, oh, I need to reset, or hey, looks like you need to change something about your life. Maybe go be active for 15 minutes every day.
Yeah.
Like whatever that looks like for that season of life. But yeah, I do think I practice mindfulness regularly.
Nice, nice. Yeah, no, I think everyone needs this at some point in time in their lives to have this time where they spend with themselves, and that could be mindfulness, meditation. It's about recalibrating because otherwise you're just interacting with matter and matter and matter every day and doing whatever needs to be done.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the gift of COVID. That was the gift of COVID for me. Like time with myself. Yeah, so I agree with you a lot. Like spending time with yourself and just being, like doing nothing is fabulous. I don't know why they don't tell you about it. It's like
Nothing is amazing. I love it those days when I say, "What are you doing?" Someone asks me, "What are you doing?" I'm just lying in the
I
bed.
recently heard about this concept. I don't know if it's the Jamaicans. I might be quoting which culture this comes from incorrectly, or South Africans. I forget. But they call it liming.
Mm-hmm.
So they'd say, "Hey, you want a lime on Saturday?"
Okay. What's
You
rhyming?
just go hang out, no plans, just be
Yeah.
with your friend. There's no expectation. Maybe you decide, don't feel like doing anything, let's just lay in bed. Or like,
Mm.
I just want to sit in the same room. You can read your book, I can read my book. Or
Good.
let's watch TV together. Or do you want to cook? Like, do you want to go for a
Yeah.
walk? Like, whatever.
Yeah.
But you just get to be. And I think liming alone is even better.
Yeah. Thank you for this because so me and my co-founder, we have an office and we love working from home as well. And we need to keep justify ourselves why we need to go to the office now, liming. Because we've actually been liming. We do our work just in each other's presence. We're probably not even having a discussion or we're just getting things done. And yeah, so I guess what we're doing is liming. No, I love it. Okay, I think last couple of questions.
Yeah.
So, very quick ones. You're in SF now, you're coming from Singapore. What is your take on this? Which one do you love more? I know it's.
Man, it's funny you ask this. I still don't have an answer, but it's so hard. I feel like I have half my heart in both of these places. What I've come to is that I love being close to nature, and there's a lot of it here.
Right.
We live in Berkeley now, SF area, but in Berkeley, and I think this is home now. Like, so that's kind of how I put it. If let's say life takes me somewhere where I have to move back to Singapore, I'd do it. Like I love Singapore, like everything about it.
Nice.
People, food, like just how everything just works, and public transit, and I can go on for hours.
It
But
does.
I proposed to my partner in Singapore. That's how much I love Singapore.
You specifically went to Singapore for proposing?
That was a trip, but I wanted to make sure I proposed there. Like I waited so that it would happen there. There's this, I think it's called Kevin Baru. There are these
Yeah,
birds
yeah, yes.
that sing that come there. Like
Yeah.
people bring them their pets, and it was like the wildest things. I was like, we both love birds, and yeah, so that's kind of where I proposed.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. And what's next for you, Sham?
Man, great question. Given I've just made a transition, I want to, in true like Sham fashion, prove out like my partner always says I'm running experiments either on myself or on people.
Yeah, yeah,
Like the experiment I'm running now is if I were to find a place where work is purposeful with smart, good people where I'm constantly learning, is that fulfillment? Have I cracked it? And I think that's what I want to do. Like I think my twenties were like taking, learning,
yeah,
like soaking up stuff. And I think of 30s as like there's a higher percentage of your life you spend giving back, like building
yeah.
things, like and like maybe it's 60-40 or 70-30. And I believe that as the decades pass by, that percentage increases of like how much you give and
Yeah.
want to just like, build products that, preserve the environment
Yeah.
for the future. But that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be.
Yeah.
That's next for Sham. We'll see if I prove the hypothesis, but yeah.
Okay, I have another question. I'm sorry that was not the last one.
No, go for it.
In this journey that you're going 30, 20, 30, and you're working with companies in different stages, what is your opinion on compensation? Are you always thinking that you must have an increase with every job role, or are you also okay with taking a cut when it's needed or combining it with equity? What's your thought here?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Finding an answer to that question is what helped me, like, big part of what made me feel comfortable about leaving Google.
Right.
So I think like maybe I have two parts to like answer that question. One is I had to understand what I need versus what I want in terms of numbers.
Yeah.
Like, what does that dollar value look like for me? And there's no judgment from my part of like,
Yeah.
oh, I shouldn't be ashamed that this is the number I need. Like, if you need this number, you need this number. You have reasons for it. It doesn't matter, Sham, that's your number. But it was an exercise to find out what those two numbers were. Like, what do I need? What do I want? And so then trying to find out where am I comfortable sitting in that range at this stage of my life.
Right.
And then the second part of it is, I think that this is because of what I have seen with my parents who've had like a very steady income or job like for like 30-35 years. Like they've been at the same company and like it's very stable. They brought
Yeah.
stability to the family.
Yeah.
And I've always unconsciously set that as a bar for myself.
Right.
And what I realized is, hey, how about you think of your career as like periods of spike and periods of like steadiness? And when you gain the steadiness, maybe you dip into savings from that spike, or you just are hitting your need number and not the want number. And maybe you work your way up to be somewhere in between. And this is just going to keep going. And recognizing this, I think made me more comfortable about like the choice.
Wow, I love this answer because most of the time people are always about increment and people are switching just to increase their salaries, or 10%, 20%, whatever it is. They're happy as long as it increases, and probably a promotion or a job role which is not going to give them that. So I like the way that you think about this, because it is very much like that in life. You are always, anyway, going through and up and down and up and down. And it's good to know where your baseline is, which is your need number. Right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, with that, Sham, we've come to the end of all my questions. And I know I've asked you so many things. I do hope the viewers have taken a lot from you today. I've understood a lot from you today. But do you have any last words to tell to our viewers on the Out of Office Show?
Stay curious.
Yeah. Nice. I love it. Simple and plain. Great. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, stay curious and keep watching the Out of Office Show. See you. I'm going to stop the recording.
Sounds good.